Welcome aboard the Athletics Can't Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets with Tim McMaster, Zack Rosenblatt, and Marissa Dunn.
Can't wait!
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Tim McMaster here along with the Athletics Jets reporter Zack Rosenblatt and our producer Marissa Dunn. This is an episode of goodbyes. We're saying goodbye to the Jets until training camp. We're saying goodbye to Marissa for longer than that. But the good news is the Jets and Marissa are both coming back.
and hopefully for the playoffs. So
yeah.
I mean,
Checking in
exactly.
right when it matters. Yeah,
exactly. Like hop on the bandwagon right in January.
Yeah, but this will be Marissa's final episode before she goes on maternity leave. So one more. We keep saying congratulations, but a couple.
Thank you.
Couple more days.
I'm very excited. Yes. Can't wait.
hey.
Can't wait. Exactly. On this episode, though, we're going to talk about the Chuck Clark injury, the Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson relationship, which seems to be blossoming, and OTA standouts. Also, a lot more than that. Subscribe to YouTube if you haven't yet. I think we're getting closer to another milestone there. Give us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen, and click that thumbs up button on YouTube too if you are watching. Zach, Aaron Rodgers social check-in. This should become a segment on the show. He was at the Tonys on Sunday. We didn't mention that he went to Wicked with all the quarterbacks except Zach Wilson. Not sure why Zach wasn't invited to that, but were you at the Tonys? You know, he went to. You've been to some of the same great events as him.
That's
Did
true.
You make it to the Tonys?
He also went to Ed Sheeran at MetLife, so he's just hitting all the spots around town while I think he's probably back in Malibu by now. But yeah, I was not at the Tonys. I'm not a big Broadway guy. I like the plays. I don't like musicals. Like musicals, I can just never.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
I never
went to a musical this weekend, actually.
Wow, look at you.
What did you see?
New York.
Oh, very nice.
The new one.
I love
something about musicals. Like I just can never like when they just start breaking out in song in the middle of like a scene. I just like I can't.
You seen Hamilton?
Get along. I haven't seen Hamilton. Actually.
I feel like Hamilton's the musical for people
who
don't like musicals.
Yeah, for sure. And I did like the movie La La Land, I would say.
Okay.
Wow, that's kind of traditionally musical-ish.
Yeah, there's good acting in there. It was fun. I don't know.
Michael is not a fan of musicals either, so we have this debate very often.
But I do like just dramatic plays. Like I saw one, I think it was the Fences one with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. I saw that live. That was pretty cool.
Okay.
Nice.
So that
There
kind of
you go.
stuff. Yeah.
But not at the Tonys.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was not at the Tonys. You know that I knew that they were showing him a lot on camera because I got like texts from like my mom being like, Aaron Rodgers at the Tonys. Did you know about this? CJ Uzama just like nobody's acknowledging that he's there with him and he's the reason why he was there. I think that CJ brought him with because CJ produced a play last year, I think called Ain't No Mo.
Oh, yes.
He's a big Broadway guy, CJ. So
it seems like they're pretty close.
Yeah, it does seem like they've developed a friendship because CJ was at the Wicked also.
Yeah, he was the only non-quarterback at Wicked.
Yeah, CJ like has I don't know. He kind of has the personality of someone that, like he's very like over the top and like dramatic. So kind of like not dramatic, but he's like I don't know. He's got like a big personality, and it's very funny to me. And so like if I was gonna guess like who would be the most likely to love Broadway, I think CJ would be near the top of the list. I don't know if I would have expected Aaron Rodgers, but he's a very diversely. He has a lot of diverse interests between music and plays, and
I think he
drugs.
just wants to do as much as he possibly can while living here, right?
I feel like we got to get him the like I Heart New York shirt at this point too. You know,
like
adventures.
and like a Yankees hat, just like the
exactly.
If they still had those advertisements, the I Love New York, he'd be like the guy at the end.
Yes, definitely.
What he needs to do is take a photo at Joe's Pizza and post it, and then he'll be gold. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the on the field action with the Jets, and we'll start with the bad news, which is this broke yesterday. Chuck Clark, serious knee injury. No more details than that at this point, right, Zach? Still waiting on official tests as we record.
Yeah, there's a second opinion. I'm not positive when that'll be, but yeah, I reported yesterday that it's believed he suffered a serious injury. I believe it was in practice. I don't want to go into like I've heard what it might have been like in terms of like the specific injury, but I can't say that with 100% certainty. But I just know that it's believed to be serious, and that it'd be kind of surprising if he winds up playing this year, unfortunately, which, when we're going to get into Adrian Amos' side of this stuff, I think when he was signed, I think the initial reaction was, oh, now they have great depth at safety. Like, it makes a lot of sense. Got him at a good price. Now you think, oh, okay, they had to replace Chuck Clark. And you feel bad for the guy. He's still only 28. He's a guy that hadn't even missed a snap, I think, in like 4 years or something crazy like that. Like, he had an Ironman streak going. And of course, he comes to the Jets and doesn't even play a snap before he gets hurt. But
injuries this time of year are just brutal. I mean, it really, like,
especially because
really
it's non-contact practices, no pads. Like, you feel really bad for those guys. I guess the positive would be that he'll recover quicker, and in theory should be good to go for like next season, or if it goes really well, if they make the playoffs or whatever. But you feel bad for the guy. That they were very excited to have him. He talked pretty openly about how he wanted to get out of Baltimore because he didn't really like, the way he was treated over there, and he didn't think he was going to start there, so that's why he came here. The coaches were raving about his IQ and how he's fitting in. I think he's going to be a leader for this team pretty quickly. And so you lose him, and now you have to bring in another guy who's 30 years old, and I think is a solid player. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's a devastating loss. It's devastating for Chuck. I don't think this will, the Jets Super Bowl hopes aren't really changing after this injury. But Chuck was a pretty clear upgrade over LaMarcus Joyner. And now they, maybe something good will come out of the second opinion, but I don't think anybody's particularly optimistic.
Yeah, and the Jets gave up a late 2024 draft pick to the Ravens for him. And it's interesting, Amos, who they signed Tuesday, it sounds like it was kind of like he was talking to the Ravens too. But obviously a bigger opportunity with the Jets with this injury, where he'll be the odds-on guy to start next to Jordan Whitehead. But he is another Green Bay Packer.
Another one. I believe he might have been a captain for the Packers too, so I'm sure he and Aaron spent a lot of time together. But I don't think the Aaron Rodgers factor had necessarily anything to do with this. Maybe they went to Aaron and be like, hey, what do you think, Adrian? But yeah, like you mentioned, he'd visited with the Ravens twice. I think they were only going to make him the third safety, and the money wasn't as good. He was also considering going back to the Packers. But then the Jets came in. I don't know exactly what day they came with the offer, but it was recent. Because the thought was he was going to be a Raven or a Packer, and then the Jets came in with their offer of 1 year up to $4 million. Obviously, the opportunity to start. He's with Aaron Rodgers, chance to compete for a Super Bowl. I'd say the Jets probably have a better chance at the Super Bowl than the Packers, certainly, and I'd argue the Ravens, but you could debate about that if you want. But so he's on the decline. I think as of a couple of years ago, he was viewed as one of the best safeties in the NFL. Last year was probably his worst year if you look at his PFF grades and how he looked on the field, especially in coverage. He used to be one of the best coverage safeties in the league as recently as 2 years ago. Was not as good in that area last year. He might not be asked to do as much in this defense because they have such good cornerbacks. Packers do too, but I think the Jets corners are better. They have good nickel corner, Michael Carter II, Jordan Whitehead and Adrian Amos. I think should complement each other a little bit better than Chuck Clark and Whitehead did. It's not ideal that they had to go this route, but I think Amos is an upgrade over LaMarcus Joyner as well. And I think they're still in a good spot. I think you saw last year, this defense was top 5 without really good safety play. So if you can just get 2 solid guys in there, you feel good. They feel better about how Jordan Whitehead's going to look in year 2. They like Amos, and then they're going to try and develop, whether it's Tony Adams, Jarek Bernard-Converse, or one of those undrafted rookies like Trey Dean, or the guy from Texas Tech, I think Marquise Waters, I think is his name. One of those guys maybe emerges as like a developmental guy. But yeah, I think they still feel good about this group, but maybe slightly less good than they did a week ago.
Yeah, you mentioned the cornerback position is so strong, and then the defensive front too, which is, you would assume, going to put plenty of pressure on the quarterback, and all of that helps make the safety. You can get by with what you have. So yeah, I agree. Not a huge big picture injury, but obviously, thoughts go out to Chuck Clark. Any serious injury like that just stinks. All right, let's move on to Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson, who we usually lead with one or the other, but we're going to talk about them together because, man, the love fest is underway between these two guys throughout the OTAs. They've both kind of said all the right things. You expect it from Rodgers, right? He's the guy. And then he has this youngster who already looks up to him before he even got here. He knew that. But on the Zach side, let's focus there quickly because he has said all the right things, and it doesn't seem like it's fake. It seems pretty genuine that he is. I think the one quote that stood out to me that was maybe also a shot at last year's, offensive coaching staff
we can
was
get into that. Yeah.
I feel like every day there's so much to learn. It's like every day, wow, I just learned 10 different things about the quarterback position, which that felt like he's saying really nice things about Aaron and the current coaching staff, but maybe there's a backhanded shot in there.
Well, he took more direct shots, I would say,
Yeah.
at the staff. We can get into that in a minute. But yeah, that was our first time talking to Zach since his exit interview, when he had the famous quote of, "I'm going to make whoever they get's life hell in practice every day," which Rodgers has kind of poked fun at a couple times now. He alluded to it again the other day, and he's like, he hasn't made my life hell. He's been heaven. He's been not heaven. He said he had the heaven quote at his intro presser, but he said he's been like perfect to work with. He's a great kid, like all that stuff. They're getting
joy,
well.
I think was the word.
Yeah, joy.
The joy to work with.
And then Zach, I jokingly asked Zach, have you made his life hell in practice every day? And Zach handled it well. I think he saw how much everybody was making fun of him for that quote. And he's like, I look at it as he's kind of like the older brother I've never had. He's like a million years older than me. And so it's like the little brother has to give the older brother hell all the time. So, I thought I've alluded to this both in interviews and I think in stories. Like, you could tell it does kind of feel like there's a little more lightness to Zach. Like there's a little bit of a weight off his shoulders. Whether that translates to anything, we'll see. But, there's not the pressure on him that there was at this time last year, all of last season, all of the last 2 years. He alluded to, he's been pretty honest about the fact that he knows he was pretty bad the last 2 years, and that's why they had to bring in Rodgers in the first place. He's like, if they were going to bring in anybody, I'm happy it was him. He said that the Jets were open and honest with him throughout the process, which, is promising, because as we've talked about, like, everybody was pretty openly saying how they needed a new quarterback. So it's good that they were like talking to him behind the scenes.
But that is encouraging, though, because I feel like that's the sort of thing that, like, the old Jets
would not have
right?
done.
Like the little things, like communicating to the guy that you're dropping down the depth chart.
Yeah, for sure. And on the flip side, Rodgers, since he's gotten here, has made it clear, like, one of his most important jobs is coaching up Zach. Not only coaching up Zach, coaching up everybody, but Zach specifically. He's like gone out of his way to give these long answers about how important it is for him to be there for Zach. And I think Aaron has, both in interviews here and elsewhere, not like here as in New York and elsewhere, has talked about how valuable those like 3 years he sat were behind Brett Favre, everything he learned, and studying film and contributing in that way. And I think he believes he can take Zach under his wing maybe better than Brett Favre did for him when he was coming up. And I think that these are all valuable mental side of the game things that'll be great for Zach. Whether it translates to on-field production, I think we'll see during the preseason in particular, which we've talked about. Like, it's going to be a fascinating preseason because of him. That relationship, it should be fruitful for Zach. And so far, I think he's handling it well. He's, by all accounts, he's, at Aaron Rodgers' hip, and he's asking him questions constantly, and Rodgers is happy to help him. And this coaching staff, I think, which we can get into now, like, so at one point, unprompted, he said something along the lines of, sometimes you need a fresh start. I needed, and he went out of his way to say, Michael LaFleur maybe needed a fresh start too, and that's why he, he's in whatever the exact quote was, and there was a follow up about what it's like having a coaching staff that is like experienced as opposed to like an inexperienced one, which is what the previous staff was. And he could have given an answer that just focused on the staff, but it was hard not to take what he said as a shot at the previous staff. There was stuff about the level of trust he has in these coaches, all the knowledge they have. And it was just like pretty clear shot at their, I wrote that story, I think it was in January now, about the relationship with him and LaFleur. It obviously wasn't good. Whether this works or not, who knows? But I think Nathaniel Hackett and Todd Downing in particular, those are the two main force. Them two and Aaron Rodgers, like that trio are the main forces in Zach Wilson's day-to-day life now as coaches. And I think they bring maybe a more like nurturing approach to it, as opposed to LaFleur, who, like his brother, I think, bless you, Marissa. I saw you was on mute.
Thank you.
The mute just in time.
That was good timing. But like the LaFleurs, I think, are more like set in their ways, and they have their way of going about doing things. And I think Michael LaFleur is maybe a little harder to approach. Like I'd heard stories from guys that if you went to Mike on your own and talked to him, he was like very like welcoming and stuff like that. But he was not someone who was going to like maybe go out his way to nurture a guy. And I think it was pretty clear he didn't believe in Zach. He was pretty open about that. Whereas I think Nathaniel Hackett has said all the right things, and his personality is, everything you hear is he's a great teacher, great guy behind the scenes, great energy, very positive. I think Todd Downing has a similar, maybe not the energy part, but definitely like he's a very positive minded person, positive thinking person. So I think, this is the environment that Zach Wilson probably needed from the beginning, and he needed to sit back and watch somebody from the beginning, but you're just doing it 2 years or 3 years later now.
It's interesting because when you think about it in this light, they failed each other, right? Like Zach needed an experienced coaching staff to help him grow as a quarterback, and Mike LaFleur needed an experienced quarterback to get him going in his first couple of years calling plays as an offensive coordinator. Instead, they were stuck with each other, and this is where we are.
And by the way, I don't think their relationship is why everything went wrong either. I think Zach was not ready for the NFL. Like, I don't think that was necessarily LaFleur's fault. I don't know how much more he could have done necessarily, but the mental side of things and Zach losing his confidence and stuff like that. Like, I think that you can maybe, if you want to say whose fault is it, it's a combo of Zach's fault and the coaching from that previous staff. And they're trying their best to put Zach in position to succeed. And, it's going to be very interesting if they wind up seeing what they want to see from him, and then they get to that 5th-year option decision and all that stuff that's coming up. Like, that's down the line, but there's a lot of factors here. So I think everybody's handling this right now. We'll see how it looks in training camp and the preseason. I think a lot of fans have, I like to tweet things that happen in practice. And I think we talked about this in the last episode. Everybody will overreact to good or bad. But so fans, I've seen a lot of fans being like, they need to sign Teddy Bridgewater. They need to sign Nick Foles. They need to sign whoever these quarterbacks are that are available. I don't think the Jets are going to do that unless it's a disaster in training camp, which it certainly could be. But I'm curious to see how Zach looks when the pads go on, when the lights are on in the preseason games and things like that.
I mean, the best case scenario, like if Aaron Rodgers cannot just be a great quarterback for this franchise for preferably 2 years, but then somehow he makes Zach Wilson the next guy in those 2 years. That'd be a pretty good part for his legacy too. Amazing.
Yeah. And I think he's even said with Jordan Love, I think he's made it a point to say even if he wasn't happy that they drafted him, which he was pretty open about in Matt Schneidman's piece, which I recommend you guys reading if you didn't a couple weeks ago. I'm sure I've seen like
I think everybody did. But sounds like everyone did.
Yeah, so. Literally everyone. People don't even know who Jordan Love is. But he like made it a point how he never wanted to be like the same as Brett Favre like treated him when he was coming up. And so I think he's taken that to another step with Zach Wilson, who they already had a previous relationship with. I think Zach mentioned in January they like got together, and this was before Rodgers was even like really a possibility, and they like got together and hung out and talked about not just football and stuff like that. So they already have a relationship. Like you mentioned, Zach views Aaron as like his football hero or one of them. So it's best for everybody if this is a fruitful relationship, and then that would be great for Rodgers' legacy in addition to if he can get this team to a Super Bowl. So
that's the dream. That is the dream. All right. You have a story out today. You had one last week too, as the things wrapped up, but kind of like a final bow on OTAs. So I wanted to get into that a little bit, and we'll start with more Rodgers, because one thing that was written about, was it late last season or in the off season, was the hand signals, right? The Athletic had a story. Kaylee had it, right?
Kalen
had it. And it was somewhat like Rodgers took exception at the time because they're supposedly very complicated, and it takes receivers. The point of the story was like rookie receivers, it can take them a long time to kind of grasp, because not only are they picking up on an offense as they join the NFL, but they have to figure out these hand signals. So one huge thing about Rodgers being at all the OTAs, and he was 10 for 10, which I don't think any of us expected.
No. I don't think he expected.
They at least started to get this. And I think the quote was like, they're still around 10% of the total hand signals. But just talk about that, Zach. Explain. I mean, people think of hand signals, right? You look at the receiver and you give like a little something before the play, and you go off the actual planned play. That's what it is. But why are Rodgers so different than maybe every other quarterback?
I just think Rodgers likes to be in complete control of the offense, like in all aspects. So when he gets to the line, if he sees something, he wants to be like, all right, I need this receiver to move over here and that to happen over there. And he thinks in the game in a much different way than it's more of like a Peyton Manning type of way he thinks about the game, where he's processing all these things in the moment and he can see, not to the future, but like he's able to process things in a way that not many quarterbacks in the history of the league have been able to do. So he's using his brain to do those hand signals. And I don't know exactly what the hand signals look like. I don't know if it's like a baseball type thing, like the whole thing you parody when you're looking over the third base coach. He's like,
because you don't
and
notice,
you're supposed to
right?
steal or whatever.
When you're watching a Packers game, you didn't notice like anything crazy,
or you're not looking for it at least. Yeah.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's going to be different here because, the Packers also did a lot of pre-snap motion, which also complicated things. And I don't think they're going to do as much of that with the Jets because that's not something he loves.
That's more of a LaFleur thing, right?
Yeah, and the Shanahan offense is a lot of pre-snap motion. But yeah, so it just like gives him control over the play, and like if he sees something, he wants to change it. And I'm sure some of the signals maybe even mean nothing, and it's just like to throw the defense off and stuff like that. I don't know, like Zach Azzani, the receiver coach, is the one that said they probably completed like 10% of it so far, just because it's early. And Rodgers even was like, we're taking it easy right now. We want to ease them into it, and then. He said to hit the way he goes about it. I don't know if he did this in Green Bay. Maybe he did, but he said what he's going to do is he's going to quiz guys during walkthroughs. So, he's like, you need to be on your P's and Q's when you're in the locker room. If we talk about something in the locker room and then we go out there, I'm going to quiz you on it kind of thing. And so he's like, I don't know if he put all that effort in. I'm not saying he didn't. I genuinely don't know if he did that when he was in Green Bay. So I think he's going to hold everybody's hand to get them in the right place. Like, it's not like everybody wants to succeed. He's not trying to make it so it's impossible for the receivers to get open. And I think nobody's worried about it getting there. But yeah, it definitely is a factor. It's something different for these young receivers to learn. Garrett Wilson, all these guys that are going to be out there. They do have a bunch of veteran guys. Corey Davis wasn't at a lot of OTAs because he had just had a kid, according to Saleh. Denzel Mims wasn't there for a lot of OTAs. Pretty much everybody else was. Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard, I think it helps a lot to have them in the room, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
And, then you have Garrett Wilson, who I think is a very smart, cerebral guy. McCole Hardman was banged up. He was at OTAs, just not practicing. So there are a lot of moving parts here, but, it's not, there's no reason to worry about this or anything. And you kind of work through these kinks in the training camp in the preseason. And then if it becomes an issue during the season, then it's something we'll talk about.
It'd be wild if it was like third base. I have friends who used to joke. One of my friends growing up, his dad was like the little league coach and then the senior league coach, and he was all about like the crazy signals.
Yeah.
And they had the indicator, so he could give you the steal sign, but if you didn't get the indicator before the steal sign, then it didn't count. And so there was like,
yeah, that was the thing.
Watching his teams play was wild, and they would bunt all the time. They were that fun team, right? They would bunt and steal and hit and run, and it was all based on. Be funny if football.
When I was just saying, aren't there some signals that are like don't do anything kind of thing?
Right. Yeah. And if you don't get the indicator at some point, none of it matters. Like the indicator is the symbol that like activates.
I wonder at what point that came into football, because I can't imagine that was always a thing. I don't know. I mean, technology wasn't the same back in the day, so maybe it was a thing then. But I know Chip Kelly.
And why Rodgers does it and others don't.
Yeah. True. Yeah. Or at least to the degree Rodgers does.
Right.
Well, I'm sure with young quarterbacks, it's hard to process because some quarterbacks do like the thing where they even have the play sheet on their arm.
Right.
I think his brain is a little bit different.
Right.
But I remember Chip Kelly. And again, I think maybe other teams do this too. They would hold up like posters that would have like random things on it, and like some of those things would mean something, others won't. Like that was a very elaborate like language.
That's a big college thing, right?
Yeah, it is a big college thing. Yeah.
With silly things on the posters.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But
all right.
Interesting. I mean, hey, I just watched it this morning. Netflix has that new documentary coming out, Quarterback.
Yeah, I saw. I was just watching the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer looks awesome. So, no Jets stuff in it, but
yeah, I was gonna say, Patrick Mahomes, I'm all in. I wasn't as sure about Kirk Cousins and Mariota as like the other two you feature.
See, I think that might be kind of cool because they're different
perspectives. Yeah,
yes,
very
different.
Fair. And Mariota did like bail on his team last year. So I'm curious if that's
So
because Mariota came out as the big draft pick and failed, right, and is now hanging on, whereas Cousins wasn't as big a pick.
Just been a solid NFL player.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're all, and then Mahomes is the all world, everything.
Yeah. Looks interesting. I think July 12th was the date. Yeah.
Yeah. Netflix has been doing a lot of. I haven't watched the golf one yet, but that's supposed to be great.
Oh, the golf one's great, and the tennis.
And the tennis and F1.
Yeah.
And they're
Really cool stuff.
combining the golf and the F1. Did you see that into some
Really?
live event where they're going to
Ooh.
have the guys actually golf?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I heard they were recording when the PGA.
Oh yes,
and
when the live stuff went down.
Yes.
So that's gonna
Oh
be,
wow. Oh man.
that's gonna be the
Yeah.
I'm
number
gonna have
one
to watch
episode
that.
they've had.
This
That stuff
is
is
like
fascinating.
this is like my two dream things. I love reality TV and sports.
Oh yeah.
So it's
and
like
you're gonna have plenty of time to watch.
exactly. I'm gonna be awake
That's amazing.
24/7.
3 in the morning.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
good. All right, you mentioned Garrett Wilson. As we get into like, I guess, standouts of OTAs, but he's been a standout obviously all along. But the one, I guess, if there was a minor concern, it was like, what if Garrett Wilson doesn't click with Aaron Rodgers? That does not seem to be a problem.
Yeah, I don't get the vibe. I think the way Garrett plays and the fact that he's only getting better, like both Zach Kazani and Nathaniel Hackett were like raving about his spatial awareness. And Zach Kazani said there's like they grade two different kinds of, I forget what the other one was. They grade two different kinds of awareness, spatial awareness and something else when guys are coming out of college, and Garrett's like already elite at both. Like his ability to basically, like, he's just always aware of where he is, who's around him, what he needs to do to go up and get the ball. So that's why he can go up and catch a ball even if it's not really near him. So he has like an elite ability to just like be aware of where he is and what he has to do to go and get the ball. And when you add his athleticism, his agility, his acceleration, like if he stays healthy, he could be one of the 5 best receivers in the NFL this year. Like, I think he has that kind of talent. So
it's crazy that just wasn't, I mean, he was the first, he went very high as a first round pick, but like that wasn't the discussion, right? It was actually like, okay, there's nobody in this draft class that's as good as some of the receivers we've had in the past few years. Right?
Yeah, because it was like him, Drake London, and I forget who the other top receiver was. I'm blanking right now. I should have that known, but
it was the previous year you had Mims went later, obviously. You had all the guys, like all the
Mims was the best receiver in that class for sure. There was Chris Olave, Jameson Williams.
Yes, Olave.
So there was like talented guys, but yeah, nobody was talking about this class like there was another Justin Jefferson in it or Jamar Chase, and I think Garrett has that potential. And like we've talked about, like he got 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns with what they had at quarterback last year. And now he's a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who can fit the ball in the tight windows. If you're open, he's going to find you. Like the timing, you got to work on the timing with these guys. Like then they're going to work on that when when they put on the pads and things actually matter and stuff like that. But, Aaron Rodgers, anytime you ask him about Garrett, he always says something along the lines of, sometimes I look around and I'm like, wow, he just did that kind of thing. Like, so Aaron Rodgers is amazed by Garrett Wilson, and he's played with a lot of great receivers in his career. So, their pairing is very exciting for people who are in fantasy. I would recommend drafting Garrett Wilson early. I think this offense could be pretty fun. I think outside of New York, maybe I feel like people are kind of don't really look at the Jets as having like a great receiver room, but I think they have a lot of like different styles of play at receiver led by Garrett. You have the number 1 receiver, which is the most important thing. Then they have a really good supporting cast of guys. They kept Corey Davis. He's a solid player. He's better off in this role as like a, second, third, fourth guy. Maybe he's overpaid, but he's good in that role. I think he can be a solid guy. Alan Lazard, I think, is a solid NFL receiver. I think McCole Hardman is explosive and fast and a better version of Braxton Berrios. Randall Cobb, for as mad as some people were about that signing, it was cheap, but he knows where to be in this offense, and he should be healthy. And I think he's like a solid just guy you can rotate in, and he's going to be reliable. And then whether it's Denzel Mims or Jason Brownlee, who I think had a good camp, like they have a good variety of like big, small, fast, shifty, versatile receivers. I think if everybody stays healthy, this could be a pretty good group.
You mentioned Brownlee, so let's talk about that because he's the undrafted free agent. Somebody always makes it through, right? Yeah. Somebody impresses. We should talk about Jerome Knapp too, just because Kutztown University. I covered Kutztown University for 9 years. Yeah. Kutztown's about 20 minutes from Reading. It's right between Allentown and Reading, Pennsylvania, right smack in the middle. You actually drive right by the campus. There's a water hill.
You know who else is from Reading, Pennsylvania?
A lot of people. Danielle Marshall.
Taylor Swift.
Well, yes.
I wanted to make sure.
But anyway, Kutztown is they were a powerhouse at one point, and then they were awful in the time that I covered them. But obviously, they had a great receiver last year. But before Let's get back to Brownlee, though. That random tangent. But Jason Brownlee has impressed. And unlike Cap, who maybe is a practice squad guy, Brownlee has a chance here.
Yeah, Brownlee, one thing that Rodgers did, which I thought was really cool, and he did this without even being asked, he shouted out like a few different undrafted guys. He shouted out Brownlee, Xavier Gibson, who's like the gadgety undrafted guy, Irv Charles, who was on the practice squad last year. I think that's all he shouted out. But yeah, Brownlee, he kept standing out to me. He'd make a play at just about every practice. I think he has pretty good size. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He made a one-armed catch in the end zone during red zone drills from Zach Wilson. And they gave him the biggest guarantee of this class, which is around 212,000.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be a pretty good guarantee. 212,000. And when they signed him, he wasn't a guy that like was on my radar as a prospect. Like you try to study a bunch of these guys who your team might get, who fits. He wasn't really a guy I had on my list. So he's impressed me. And I think he could legit especially because Mims hasn't been in OTAs and whatnot. And Brownlee's getting kind of a head start on this offense and all that. Like I'm intrigued by him. And then you mentioned Jerome Cap. He's a guy that I knew nothing about, and he's number 31. So I kept thinking he was a running back. Like I've never seen a receiver with a number 31 before. But yeah, on the last day he had like 6 catches. He was getting a lot of targets. There was a lot of guys out, so he got some opportunities and he capitalized on them. So as I said in the article, and I have like a 90-man roster thing at either coming this week or next week where I, break down every single player on the roster. He to me feels like the leading contender for fan favorite in training camp, just because he's just a guy from small town school kid, makes plays.
How about this?
When given
Does he get an
opportunity.
episode of Hard Knocks?
If they're on Hard Knocks, maybe. Yeah,
I know. I was shocked we didn't mention it earlier when we were talking about all the TV stuff. So.
Yeah, Solid made it clear he does not want to be on it. So,
good for us that it's not his decision.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fascinating if they get it, especially because they have their own Hard Knocks thing already. So I'm sure that's part of their.
Oh, that's true. That's one reason the team probably doesn't want it.
I feel like we have to know soon.
Yeah,
I think they usually would have announced it by now. So I bet there's some behind the scenes like fighting to not be on it kind of thing.
Because if you're HBO, like a lot of planning has to go into this, right? Like you don't just show up on the first day of training camp and be like, "All right, guys,"
Well, especially the Jets start camp earlier too, so I wonder how that factors in.
And they normally, I feel like they normally film draft stuff too. Like, I feel like they're normally filming at least, like for background stuff this time of year.
Well, they probably have the footage from like NFL Network for that already, I would say.
I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I don't know. There's, as we kind of talked about this, there's a part of me that would be fascinated by it because it'd be great content. But then there's the lazy part of my brain that's like, it's more work for you. But yeah, I mean, it would be cool. And you get access to things that like even we as reporters don't see when we're there. The meeting rooms, what they say to people. There's always the cut down day part, which is always wild.
Tough.
It's always fascinating to see which guys are going to latch on and be like the star of Hard Knocks. And yeah, and then you, especially with the Jets, you wonder, okay, will Aaron Rodgers give them, so some guy, you don't have to like grant the interviews or whatever. Like, would Aaron Rodgers give them access with Zach Wilson? Sauce Gardner, I imagine.
Aaron Rodgers, by the way, would totally.
Oh, yeah. Sauce Gardner would be
like at least one sit down, like long interview.
Sauce Gardner would be happy to welcome them into his home, I imagine, and watch him play video games and stuff like that. Garrett Wilson, maybe take him on he always saying it's Garrett Wilson in the locker room. A lot of times if he was at his locker, he was happy to talk to you, but there's a lot of times he was like on the way out and somebody be like, "Hey, can I grab you?" He's like, "I got to go walk my dog." Like he said it enough times that it was like a legit thing, clearly. So it'd be funny to see behind the scenes of him just like running to walk his dog after work kind of thing. And yeah, they got, Mekhi Becton would be a fun storyline.
Yeah.
Carl
I
Lawson
mean,
on
the
his comeback.
Storylines are there. Like,
yes.
That's a given. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This is the Jets too. So
yes, exactly. So,
so we'll see. I'm curious. I'm sure fans want it because they want as much access as they can get. So,
yeah.
And there's only 4 teams eligible. So it's Jets, Saints,
Bears,
and
Commanders.
Yeah, and Commanders. And obviously the Commanders are another one that I would think of your HBO, right? Like new ownership, dumpster fire franchise, more so than the Jets because it like goes beyond football. It's like just really a horrible franchise.
That's all true, but but I think the NFL is also involved in the selection process. So I
That's a
wonder
good
if
point.
they won
Yes.
behind the scenes.
Well,
of this
but this is the
disaster of the
rebirth.
Commanders.
This is the rebirth of the
True.
franchise.
Right.
Yeah, it's a way to like present them as like, look, they're good now. Be nice to
Right.
them.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's one of those two.
Wait, so
Although there was
maybe
a random.
So
thing
maybe
that we
they're
saw.
waiting. Maybe they're waiting for the sale to go through because I know they still have to like vote that. So
But
maybe that would be why the Hard Knocks is waiting.
I don't
true.
think I think they're not meeting until August to officially make it
Yeah.
official.
Okay. Never mind then.
Oh, that
So-
complicates things then.
Hmm.
I saw something like
Because there's a lot they won't be able to talk
Yeah,
about.
so this was released
Yeah.
yesterday. NFL owners were told in a memo Friday to be available July 20th and August 8th as possible meeting dates to vote to approve the Commander's sale. per
Okay. So
source.
maybe not. So maybe it won't be Washington then. So,
That might eliminate them because that's
Yeah.
just too much red tape to get through if you're.
Yeah, and it'd be awkward to do the show without acknowledging that too. So.
Oh yeah.
So the Saints, I don't know if they're that appealing to like a national audience.
No.
The Bears are interesting, but not as much as the Jets.
Yeah.
So, and the Bears are like rebuilding and not very good. So
Yeah. I think Bears would be like 2 on the list if
Yeah,
Commanders didn't.
the
go
NFL
through.
absolutely wants the Jets. Like I can say that without having like any sources telling me that, but the NFL obviously wants them, I would say.
I mean, they've been the team of the offseason, right? So
Yeah.
like
And
why
they were
wouldn't you
and they
want
were
to play
and they
that?
were a great subject for when the Rex Ryan won. That was like one of the better ones. I feel like
Yeah.
you saw a lot of like Rex behind the scenes.
That
which is
was
fun,
the last
so.
time they were on it, correct?
Yeah.
Makes sense as to why they're a candidate to do it again.
And
Yeah.
didn't Woody wasn't Woody very available for that one? If I remember back,
I don't
Like,
remember. I didn't know who Woody was back then. So I was a young buck.
But that's another like. I guess they don't want it, but like I feel like Woody is the kind of guy that they're like, yeah, bring in the cameras.
The funny thing is, I saw a story from last year. I can't remember who reported it, so I apologize for this, but that the Jets like wanted it last year, maybe because they didn't want it this year. I don't know. And it was down to the Lions or Jets last year, and they went with the Lions. I didn't watch last year's. I heard it was a good season because
it was good.
previous years has kind of bored me, so I kind of stopped watching it. But I heard the Lions are pretty entertaining. So we'll see. It'll be interesting, especially if they do it unwillingly. I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Yes.
Maybe that's our next show is when that's announced. If it's the Jets, we can just hop on and talk about.
Then we just like rank all our favorite. Rank all our
stuff.
favorite storylines. That'll be
Yes.
fun. Yeah.
I
That'd
like
be fun.
that. I like that.
The goal
All right.
would be to get a clip from Can't Wait on there. We got to say some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Either positive or negative, just so we, you see that on Hard Knocks, they like play the clips on there and stuff. So
Yeah.
We've
the
made
Jets are
ones
for
like
sure going to
five-
win this week. They're amazing. Or the Jets fucking suck. Like stuff like that.
We'll just like right at the end, we'll just say crazy things and like
Yeah,
and then like at
say crazy
HBO.
things. The Jets are for sure going to win the Super Bowl. The Jets are for sure not going to win the Super Bowl. We just have to say like every option so they can.
And we can even, like the producer in me is like, you can even give them like a 3, 2, 1. Okay, here you go. Here's this stick.
Oh my god! Yeah, I love it.
All right. Anything else? Do we miss anything? I had Becton and Brown on the rundown, but like we got time.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get to that. So, all right. This came in from. I just wanted to point this out. Oh, that I hit the wrong one. From
We're
from
happy
Boy
that Boy
Green.
Green is in the chat.
This is very true, though, that I have to press the buttons now. So, just for everybody out there, when the production value of this show, especially on YouTube, plummets over the next,
You'll know what the real
6
sauce
months.
behind
Yeah.
how this thing operates.
You guys
Yeah.
are going to do a great job. I will be
We're
listening.
gonna miss you.
Yes, I will miss you guys. But like I keep telling everybody, I'm not going anywhere. I'm probably
Yeah, I know.
I'm probably
That's why
going to
when
be
I-
listening to more pods than I do now because I'm going to be not
True.
sleeping ever. Not like I'm really sleeping now anyway. But yeah, so I
why
expect
when I-
longer
when I- that's
pods
why
to
when
be
I,
entertained, So
Yeah, that's why when I tweeted that this was your farewell pod, I said I made sure to put for now in parentheses so people didn't think you were like leaving.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially after the rough week we had here. So
Plus, you can
Yeah.
always pop in if you're bored.
Yes,
just hang
yeah,
around the
no,
house, yeah.
I definitely would love that. A little mid-season
Oh, yeah.
check-in.
That's definitely
Yeah.
gonna happen at some
Yes.
point. Yeah.
And I will send pictures. I was telling Mike Sando and Randy Mueller, I recorded Football GM this morning, that she has so many cute football outfits already. So she is ready for football season. She's got some cute toys. So she's definitely going to be cute. She's gonna have like her girly outfits, but she's gonna have her sporty side too. So looking forward to it.
Love it. And her middle name will be Chris for Strevler, right?
Exactly. We still don't have a name.
Oh wow,
Michael
you didn't know. So first name is on the table still.
Yeah, we did like a bracket style.
Oh really?
Michael's like, let's put all the names we like in a bracket, and
That's
we
funny.
each did a bracket. And
Oh, you should have put that on social media.
Yeah,
Could have had
and
people vote.
It's funny.
Every round.
Right, one of the names we added, he needed a 16th name, and I was like, oh, what about this name? And he was like, oh yeah, we had kind of talked about that. Let me throw that in. And ended up winning his bracket. So now that name that barely made it in, yeah.
So you only did 16 though. You didn't go 64 names.
No, we just did 16. Yeah, but we're both very indecisive people.
So are you gonna decide like in the moment or like what?
I think in the moment. My guess is it's gonna be an M name. But I don't know. I said, I don't. My sister just had a baby and she was calling the baby this one name pretty much the whole second half of her pregnancy, and then she had the baby. And it was a totally different name. So I think that's making me a little nervous to be like, this is the name, because we're not sure yet. So obviously, she's going to be amazing no matter what name she has. So keep you guys updated on all of that. But yeah, it's getting close.
We'll let everybody know as soon as when you give us the okay.
Yes.
I would say the scariest part about the coming weeks is that Connor Hughes is going to be a dad. So
I know.
That's what everybody should be worried.
Connor's on.
It takes a village, everyone.
Yeah,
ready to help out.
No,
Connor was texting. Michael went golfing yesterday, and I guess there's some app that alerts your friends that you went golfing, right?
Wait, what?
So it tells you I guess this app, if you put your scores in, your friends, it's almost like social media can see what you golfed on that, So Michael and Connor are both on this app. Connor starts texting Michael, we got to go, all this stuff. I'm like, he's having a baby, I think, this week. He does not need to worry about going golfing with you. And you don't need to worry about going golfing with him, Michael. So yeah, we'll have some play dates for sure.
I think Connor's just really good at compartmentalizing.
Yes.
Or good at ignoring, the reality
or he
of life.
Just doesn't pop in his head until it happens, which is also possible.
Well, he not to give too much away from private conversations, but he said stuff like he told his he's talked about Bree on here, so he told Bree that he was going to go to Giants minicamp this week, and she smacked him. He said because their due date was yesterday.
That's good. Good job,
Bree, I mean, I feel like our listeners should know Bree is an absolute champ. And
I mean,
I don't know what Connor would.
She's been dealing with a child for as long as they've been alive.
Exactly.
As long as they've been together. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. Being a mom for her is going to be so natural. So,
Oh, by the way, Dan just shouted it out. It was funny when Rogers.
I threw it up on the screen.
So Rogers jabbed him in the beginning, and then Connor just spaced out because he was blown away that Rogers remembered that. And then so Connor asked a question almost word for word that was already asked, and then we all just started laughing at him, and never was give him a break. But
yeah, exactly.
All right, I think that's gonna do it. We've extended this as long as we can, but Marissa, best of luck, obviously.
Thank you.
We'll stay in touch, and and we'll have you on at some point during the season once you have everything in order.
Yeah, hopefully maybe we could do as soon as the early of the season training camp stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, but we won't make you press the buttons.
Yeah, I'll bring her on with me as long as she's not crying.
Yes, well, definitely. As far as this show goes, we'll be back with you for breaking news. Obviously, Zach, we'll try to get one in before training camp as well. But if something big happens, as always, we will be here and then back at it with training camp, obviously, and off we go. Thank you so much to everybody for listening and watching and everything. Like I said at the beginning, like us, give us a thumbs up, give us a 5-star review, only 5-star reviews, no 4-star reviews, no 3-star reviews. And if you want to join The Athletic, you can do it right now for $1.99 a month, I think is the best deal. Go to theathletic.com/can't wait for that one. And we will talk to everybody soon.